very little, I didn't really have many people around me, talking about death too much,
I don't think our culture does talk about death. And growing up, I never had anybody in my life die. I didn't experience it. All of my family has a very long life. And so it was just nothing I ever really thought about too much.
No, I know. Death is a very difficult thing. People don't want to talk about it.
Well, we're afraid, Margaret. I mean,
Yeah,
and
I know.
I think it's, we're all afraid of that great unknown. And I think as much as anything, we're afraid that maybe in the process of dying, that it'll hurt. And I think everybody's sort of...
We've got company again.
Good.
Hello, I'm so glad you could join us again. We're talking about death today. It sounds a bit morbid, doesn't it?
It does a bit. But I have a lot of questions, and I think most of us do.
Well, actually, when I was born in the war, as I said before, there was a lot of death around me. So, but I don't remember it. And the first time that really I faced death was when my pet dog, I loved him so much. We used to go everywhere. I walked with him. My pet dog decided that this neighbor's cat was a rat. And he got it, and he killed it, and he brought it to me.
A gift.
Yeah, but you can imagine my horror.
Sure.
I got this little thing, and I'm heel, trying to bring it back, because it was gone, And next thing I know, the neighbor's banging on my mother's doorstep, we want this dog destroyed. It's the most evil thing in the city, And it's like, my dog. And I pleaded, And no one would listen to me. What could I do? I was 10 years old.
They put the dog down because it killed the cat?
Right.
That's amazing.
But, it was like another lesson. Always having lessons with spirit. My guides came around me, and they said, okay, talk to the dog. Tell the dog about the spirit world. So I sat there on this big box that we had with the dog, and it was like the dog knew. I mean, it understood. It just sat there with my arm around it, and I sat there for like 4 hours saying, now, when you die, it's going to be all right. Don't be afraid. It's going to be my spirit guides. They're going to help you pass over. And then I went on to tell him all about the spirit world, and he just sat there like licking at me. I was so sad. I mean, that was my experience. And then the next day I was made to go to school, and I knew the minute that dog's spirit left his body, I knew when he was put down. I felt it,
But I think just in that story, you're telling us something that a lot of people want to know, because I hear all the time, even people who believe in an afterlife wonder if animals join humans in an afterlife, if they indeed have a soul that goes on. Yeah. And what you're saying is, yes, they do.
Of course. I mean, I was on the psychic line 3 days ago, actually, and this person called up because she wanted to talk to her relative that had died. And the first thing that I got as I was tuning in from her guides was her pet rabbit, her pet cat, and a dog that had belonged to some other relative in the family. It just came bounding at me, It's like, hi, we're still here, we're very much alive. And she's like, oh my God, I have to believe anything you say thereafter, because to her, these animals was when she was young, and she'd forgotten about them.
Oh.
Yeah. And even, the cows and sheep and any animal that's been loved and in contact with a human being is going to graduate into the spirit world and still be with spirits in the human sense.
But Margaret, there are a lot of people who don't believe in an afterlife. And there are a lot of people who maybe don't want to believe in an afterlife.
Do you?
Do I believe, or do I want to believe?
Well, both.
I don't know. I think I would like to believe, but I really don't know. So sometimes when I hear about people that, die and then come back to life, come back into their bodies, and they talk about the fact that they're not afraid to die anymore, that they know that this wonderful place is waiting for them, and in some ways they hated to come back into their body because they like the warmth and the love of where they were. And yet we're all taught that if we do bad things on earth, that maybe we're going to be punished. So maybe if you aren't always being terrific and wonderful, there's the fear that if indeed there's an afterlife, that maybe you will go to hell or,
Hell.
you know, some horrible
Doom,
punishing place.
brimstone, the
Exactly.
fire, right, yeah.
So is there
Actually,
a hell?
there is.
There is. Okay.
But it's not like that.
Okay.
There's a law again, God's law. It says like attracts like in the mirror image, and we see it here on this planet all the time. You know, there's some woman uptight shouting and ranting and raving, and then there's a neighbor across the street who's also shouting, ranting and raving, and some kid falls off a bike, and the next thing we've got a wonderful excuse for everyone to have an argument, right? And they're hating one another and shouting at one another, and you see it on the streets, right? Mm-hmm. Same in the spirit world. So if you're up there and, you know, you're into money counting, so you're going to bump into a whole bunch of people up there who are still money counting. Yes, they are. They're counting their wealth, okay? So it's like going through an evolution, planes of different places in the spirit world. So if you are one of those people that really does believe that the devil's there with the horns and the tail, you're going to find there is a devil with the horns and the tail on your doorstep in the spirit world. But I'll give you an example, actually, of what I did once. It's not something that everybody does. I came out of body. Mm-hmm. And it was an incredible journey for me because...
Now, were you ill, or was this just an out-of-body experience
it was just
through meditation
it
or
was
something?
one of those times when my guides decided that Margaret was ready
Needed
to
a
have
trip,
a
huh?
trip. Right.
Okay.
So I was about, 20, and I was going through some questions with Sister Teresa, who's one of my guides, about how much do we really know about ourselves. And so she took me into the spirit world, and she took me on a journey, and the journey was like, in my mindset, going downhill. And I arrived in the spirit world, and there was a bell ringing, and there were a lot of people. They were all going to church, and she said to me, "You see, they still go to Sunday services, you know, because they still believe in Sunday services, and they need the structure, and so on. And it's wonderful." She's smiling and thinks it's wonderful, you see. And then we went on a little further, and it felt like I was sloping downhill, and we went to a garden, and there were some people meditating and doing stuff there, and I thought, well, surely that's a higher vibration, the people meditating, than the people going to church, you know. In my mind at that time, that's the way I thought. And she said, no, because these people are just opting out. They're not doing anything. They just sit there and, okay, I'm being. But they had no focus, they had no goal. Whereas the people went to the church, they were trying to get somewhere or do something. So I started to realize that what she was saying was, it's what you think. These people weren't thinking, so all they had was a beautiful garden. They could stay there forever.
But Margaret, when they talk about doing the opposite, you're going to be born, that basically you're a spirit and that you choose the parents you're going to be born to, and you choose the body. So are these same spirits who die are going to church and still, in essence, living the same life that they lived on earth, the same ones who then...
Hello, I'm Gail Wilson, and I'd like to invite you to join thousands of other Californians in honoring a uniquely American tradition, volunteering in your community. You can make a difference in the lives of others by volunteering your time and your knowledge. People often don't know where to start. From mentoring at-risk children to getting a neighborhood watch program started, the needs are many and varied. Last year, my husband established the California Commission on Improving Life Through Service in order to promote community service and volunteerism. And it's part of the national effort to make service a basic part of our lives. For more information on how you can make a difference in your community, please contact the California Commission on Improving Life Through Service at 916-323-7646. The opportunities are endless, and the rewards last a lifetime.
It doesn't necessarily follow. It could be some neighbor down the street. Because it is in itself still a shock for the spirit to see long-lost relatives immediately. It's better to kind of, especially if they've passed over with some sort of illness, you know, it's better to wake up in a hospital with an old friend, you know, just turning up casually and like, oh, how are you? You know, chat. And then,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I didn't know. Weren't you dead afterwards? Thinking, yeah, well, you're with me, but I'm not dead. I feel very much alive. I'm in this bed. I don't feel like I've lost a body. The spirit feels just as solid. So I guess there's nothing to cry about.
It does feel solid. It
Yes.
isn't sort of like you're wafting along or something. I mean, there's a sense of substance, a sense of self.
Absolutely. You know, when I'm out of body and I'm in the spirit world, you know, and I'm touching things and doing things, it's just as solid as I am here.
It's not like Casper the Friendly Ghost where your hand goes through the wall or anything like that.
No, but I tell you what, when your spirit is out of body and comes to the physical world, then you walk through. I've done it. I've been out of body and appeared in my friend's house because we were doing some tests on testing out of body, and that's a long story. But I was able to appear like half on one floor and half in the ceiling. I was like in the floor, literally. Okay. You know, so it's funny.
So it's a different dimension.
It's a
in a
different
way. So
dimension.
when you're a spirit in the physical world, you respond to the physical differently than a spirit in the spirit world.
Right. See, in the spirit world, going back to my journey, after that she took me into another area where there were like big houses, Georgian houses, and rich and wealthy people, and they were still living in there, and they had like their servants, and they were miserly, and they were like, what do you want? You know, well, we just came to visit. You can't visit now, you know, that kind of attitude.
Right.
And you felt really cringy. And then we went downhill some more, and then we were in a place where it was deserty. And it was like one house, and you travel for miles, and then there'd be another house, okay? And it was like, why are these people aren't talking? It's like, we don't want strangers around here. Don't come near us. We'll call you, you know, kind of thing. And again, it felt even more, the energy felt poured in. And it went on like this, and then I ended up in this craggy, damp place, like Rocky Mountains, and cold and miserable, and there's people walking around like this, you know, and it's like, psst, they're hissing at you. And I thought, can any human being ever be like that? And
So are you telling me this is what some people have to look
this is
forward
what
to?
because they think this way. They died and they thought this is, and you can say, well, why did God leave them there? Well, God doesn't leave them there, because part of my journey, and the reason I went there, was with my sister Teresa, my guide, to bring light to them and say, all you've got to say is, who are you? Can I come with you? And I'll take you away from here.
So they're not stuck there forever.
No.
It's just until they're able to change
Just
their mindset.
until
Because
they
that's
just-
depressing,
Right.
Margaret. I'm sorry. That's
Absolutely.
like, doesn't sound
Well,
like a
I tell
whole
you,
lot of
that
fun.
day on that journey, we brought 14 back with us that were saying, you know, I'm not going to hiss at you anymore. I've had enough of hissing, or I don't want to shut you out. I want to come with you because it's boring here in this house all on my own. Or, you know, I've got all this money and I'm still miserable. Why? Can I come with you? And so on. And we took them back in the spirit world. And there, what happens next is they go into the Akashic records. It's like sitting in a room and you see all their lives, all the things you've ever done, and you look at yourself and going, God, was I like that? You know, how stupid. Oh, but what did I learn? Okay, and at that point you kind of say, well, I can see I didn't learn this, and then I want to go and sit with my master teachers in the spirit world, and you go to the halls of learning. Did you know about that?
No, I've never heard
You
of
never
it.
heard
No,
about the
not
halls
heard
of
of it.
Well, the halls of learning are wonderful. You know, you've got the hall of music.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's beautiful. Puccini.
Now, do you
Puccini is
remember
one of my
it from
favorite-
before, or they've taken you since you've been in this life? When you say it's beautiful, how do you
Both.
know? Both.
Both.
So you do remember before you came into
Yeah.
this body?
Yeah, I have recall, but I also have my out-of-body trips.
All right.
Puccini, I'm going to fall over myself here with the words. The music still, even now, not the singing, just the music. When I listen to that, it's music of the soul. When you go into the hall of music, the music is like that. It just pours on your heart and soul. You lift, it's like tears want to come, joy wants to come. The music is the most beautiful, healing, vibrational sounds that you can hear. And like in one of my books, Pro-Life, Pro-Choice, Pro-Spirit, that book, I've got there where in one room you can have several people playing their music. You can have someone playing a trombone, you can have someone else playing a guitar, and they're all playing their own separate music. And somehow it doesn't interfere. They're all in their own world. And you can either only just hear one, if that's all you choose to. You become one with them, and you just listen to their music. Okay, or you could become one with all of it, and somehow you think 400 music songs all at once were sounded in. It doesn't.
It blends.
It becomes like a whole orchestra. It's really quite amazing. You can find all the early musical instruments. There was one that I thought was incredible that I remember playing with. It was a bone. It was just an ordinary, like a dog bone, a female bone, and the prehistoric man had made these holes and hollowed it, got the marrow out, and blow down it and put 2 holes in it, and just with the 2 fingers make these
very basic
2
pipe.
whistle pipe.
Amazing.
Yeah, back in
That's
prehistoric
amazing.
times, and people don't know that. Okay, but there's a lot of stuff. That's the Hall of Music. Okay, it's beautiful, beautiful place. Then you've got the Hall of Science. Everything that man has ever done in terms of creation of, like first wheel.
Yeah, I mean, really basic. But does it also go into things that man will eventually do? Or is it just, it stops where
there are
our world is
people
now?
inventing. I mean, everything that we have down here, okay, is really already created up there. Okay, if I decide I want to design a new TV camera, okay, there's already someone up there got the idea, working on it. Okay, and then I'm sitting here, and my guide comes along and puts the picture in my head and gives me the inspiration,
And
then I
teaches you
start
how,
fiddling.
sort of.
Right,
Yeah.
that's how we all create. Nothing is just from our everyday self.
So when you have somebody like an idiot savant who, really can't communicate but suddenly can play incredible pieces of music, is that coming from the spirit world? Is that what that ability is?
Partly.
Yeah.
Partly. They may have been a Mozart in a previous life, or someone like that. Okay? Or they may have Mozart actually playing through them. I had a medium friend, she's now passed over in England, who channeled Beethoven. Okay? And we've got pictures of her and the energy around, and the spirit faces over her and all around her, because my husband used to do the spectrum photography. And as she evolved, he became so much with her. She developed this thick draw here, sort of.
So it's almost took on the physical characteristics of Beethoven.
Because he worked with her so much, and her music was inspired and new. It wasn't his old stuff, and people tested it, and they said it's certainly in the style of Beethoven. We can't.
But it hadn't been written by Beethoven. It was what you're saying.
She said it was written by him through her.
But through her, yes.
But she had to put a name on it, So there's a lot of creative stuff. Then there's the medical world. That's in the science part. All these like they're looking for a cure for AIDS now.
Right.
It's already being worked on. But it
Well,
only
why do they
comes
take
through.
so long to give it to us? Why don't they give it to us now? All these people need it, Margaret.
I know, isn't it?
Doesn't
It sound
It's like-
terrible, but you see, we got to learn something. Okay, if we just got it and got rid of it just like that, it would all be taken for granted, and we wouldn't.
the lessons wouldn't
We
come
won't
for
learn
us.
anything. So when the world has learned through AIDS to appreciate their bodies, their mind, their spirit, their heart, their soul, because that's what this particular disease is teaching, then the cure come in. It's like when we had polio. Everybody suddenly said, okay,
Pictures of hope from Child Reach. Families and communities freeing themselves from the grip of the world's cruelest poverty with the help of Child Reach sponsorship. Self-help programs that mean clean water, medicine, schools, food, and a real chance for a better life. If you'd like to be part of these wonderful pictures, call 1-800-346-1100. 1-800-346-1100. Child Reach sponsorship. Yes, it works.
For myself, is that whenever I'm looking at something in the spirit world, I'm always amazed, I'm always enthralled with what I find out that's up there. Hi, you're back. I'm glad you came back. Well, anyway, go on.
Well, going back to what people experience after they die, I think in some ways you've made me even a little bit more nervous to think, because I guess I've always assumed that if indeed there is a spirit world, that it would really be radically different from what we're doing here, what we're experiencing here. But basically what you're saying is we're going to take with us what we've done here until we can leave it behind. And whether we leave it behind in this life or we take it with us to the spirit world, and then ultimately we have to work through it there as well, that we still are going to take the same lessons with us.
But you've got to see the joy of it, okay? Earthly consciousness says, oh, this is all rejection, this is all negative, this is all bad, okay? In the spirit world, when you look at everything you've done in this life and in your previous lives, and correlate it all as one big long life, if you see what I mean, then you're going to say, boy, I've come a long way and I've learned a lot and this is wonderful and I'm so happy I've done all those different things. And so now I want to take it a step further, and of course the motivation is always to become one with God. We want to go back to Source, to become one with God. So another time I went with Spirit, Sister Teresa and Master Chang, another one of my guides, we went in the ascension vibration. We're going up now, okay? And I mean, it's not really literally we're going down.
No, I know.
But it's just the way they gave it to me so that I would remember. And I went into the next plane, the next level, because when we die from here, we go into what we call heaven, okay? We'll stay with that because it's simple. And everything is a mix match of what's been on the earth and what is there for us to go into. But when we get away from that and we go into the next level, there, the people are all walking around in absolute harmony. I mean, everything's wonderful. The lion does lie down with the lamb, and there's no killing. I mean, the animals don't feed off one another. The wild animals, you can walk for miles. One of the things I was doing one time with running deer, is also one of my guides, was walking with the buffaloes on the plains, in the spirit world. And you see the spirit of the soul energy, if you like, of all the animals is unified. As the soul of all the humans is unified. As the soul of all the insects is unified. You know, people say to me, but do we get snakes in the spirit world? We do.
But they're not rattlers, and they're not going to bite you. It's not going to be the same.
And they're not the same. And their core energy from the soul vibration is entirely different. One of the snakes I remember seeing in the spirit world was purple. I mean, a real opaque, translucent purple. Most beautiful color I'd ever seen. And when you held it, you could feel it healing you. Nobody thinks of a snake as healing you. Okay? But they do. One of the things in India that the people do with the snake is honor the snake. One of the things that the Egyptians did was honor the snake, because they knew that the snake shed its skin. It was a symbol of life after life. They knew that the snake had no judgment. It didn't condemn. It lived. It lived a life of vibration. So there are snakes in the spirit world, not so many, okay, because they correlate and become one.
So it's not each individual snake that ever lived on the earth is there. It's they blend or.
Yeah. So anyway, there are a lot of wonderful things to discover in the spirit world. You know, we're going to be running out of time soon, so we better tell everyone. If you want to talk to us, please call us at the number that will be given at the end of the show. If you have questions, you want to know more, write to us. The address will be there. Did you want to say anything to anyone?
Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us. We hope that you will join us next time. And, anything that you'd like for me to talk to Margaret about, questions that you have, I'd be happy to represent you. And just let us know.
Good. So anyway, in the spirit world, there are times when the guardian angels, everyone has guardian angels, they're guides. We call them guides. They come and they talk to us and they teach us. And they share their knowledge because they come from the higher planes and there are 4 above the spirit world. And their energy is so encompassing, it's so healing. And you can sit literally at the foot of Jesus and listen, or the foot of Siddhartha Buddha and listen, or Melchizedek, all these great sages, Elijah, Abraham, they're all there. They really are there. And they'll come and they'll speak to you. And you can learn and you can listen. But there are other great sages, other great guides, people that you don't even know, they're not recorded in history, but who came and did wonderful things.
But do you know what strikes me, Margaret? I mean, you're saying that we can go to all the leaders and learn from each of them, but instead on Earth, what we use is those leaders are divisive, that the people use them. Well, we can only follow Muhammad, we can only follow Jesus, that each one is the only one. And yet, really, what you're saying in truth is that they all have wisdom and they all have love and they all have a great deal to offer us if we would only realize that we could live as one and in unity on Earth.
And the first lesson is love yourself. Jesus taught that. Love yourself, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Because if you love yourself, if you're kind to yourself and you're happy and you feel wonderful, you automatically radiate that kind of energy. And the person with you feels it and wants to be with you. And you have a sharing going on. And when you have that, you can get a lot done. Birds of a feather flock together.
Right.
Prayer. The power of prayer is so powerful. You got a whole, say, St. Peter's Square full of people praying for healing for the world. Changes the energy in the world. Changes the consciousness. So I always try and get everyone to be aware of themselves first. Heal themselves. Think that death is not death, but a transition. We die 1,000 times every day,
Yes, I've heard.
So we're making transitions all the
Constantly.
time. Constantly changing. And those are mind, body, and soul. Those are life.